Welcome.
This is a Colbycast episode.
Push the button! Hello, and welcome to Colbycast 25 for June 1st, 2011. I am R.L. Ferguson. Not much news this week. What with the holiday and our preparations to relaunch the podcast on August 1st, we haven't had any time to get into trouble. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday and are ready to get back to normality. If you were like me and hold a job that can't stop for the holiday and were forced to work the entire holiday because people had to have off to do the things they wanted to do, thereby destroying your wonderfully tailored schedule, I salute you. I think there needs to be two types of holidays. There needs to be the weekend variety for all the 9-to-5ers whose jobs stop every weekend. And then there needs to be a set of matching holidays held on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursdays, where if you had off for the weekend variety, you are ineligible to take off. This would allow nurses with low seniority, police officers with low seniority, and most importantly, people in my sacred profession of calorie distribution who are forced to feed all the happy, wonderful, nice people who are on holiday, even though they always have the weekend off, and really, what is the value of an extra day on a holiday you already have? Honestly, they have things like paid vacation anyway. True, I can take a vacation a day I wish, but I don't get paid. So cough it up, bankers, lawyers, corporate executives. Give the working poor a holiday that inconveniences you. Oh, wow. Where'd that come from? The writer had to work the entire holiday? Tell him to quit whining and get me a snack. Where were we? Preparations for launch.
6, 5, 4, 3. Ignition. 3, 2, 1. 0. Roger. Liftoff. Liftoff. Hold. Fox away.
Like that sound clip? A little much? You don't think so? Come on, everyone uses those clips. Back to the news. I think Bear should do the news. I need a coffee, and none of you guys are bringing it. Bear, get over here and read this. Do I get to run the clip again? I think it would set the mood. Whatever.
6, 5, 4, 3. Ignition. 3, 2, 1. 0. Roger. Liftoff. Liftoff. Hold. Fox away.
In breaking news, Colbyjack.net has received permissions from Cory Doctorow to run serial tales based on his work. Oh, really? We'll be launching with For the Win on August 1. This tale will run weekly until it is finished. The edition of For the Win is a feather in the cap of Colbyjack.net. The series, which is expected to run through January 2012, will appear weekly on Fridays. In other news, we have received permissions from Benjamin Rosenbaum to produce a tale from his wonderfulness in the upcoming year. Wonderfulness? I know Benjamin Rosenbaum is known for The Ant King, biographical notes to a discourse on the nature of causality with airplanes by Benjamin Rosenbaum, and The House Beyond Your Sky. But wonderfulness? That is just pandering. What other rubbish did the writer leave for me? Blah, 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 wordies, more blah. Who wrote this? It was Mouse, wasn't it? Oh, here's a good part. If you're an author and wish to allow us to record your material, please contact R.L. Ferguson at Colbyjack.net. He is looking for more works from 3,000 to 21,000 words in order to grace the Colbycast. More words, blah, blah, blah. Oh, here's the wonderful part. I just love this. If you don't send him some works, he will be forced to write his own. Shudder. Or skulk around the back door of Gutenberg looking for more ancient, musty, dusty old tales. So, for all the gentle one holds right and proper, send this fool something to read. What about pay? He doesn't pay me, and I am the great Captain Horatio Bear retired. Some people. That's it for this week. Bye.
We aren't done, Bear. We got a story.
You did a story. I got ravens to hunt.
Thank you, Bear. I hope he didn't do anything wrong. Everything looks right. Microphone, monitors, snack cakes. Oh, no. That furry abomination stole my snack cakes. Bad Bear. This week's tale is Subjectivity by Norman Spinrad, which originally appeared in Analog Science, Fact, and Fiction in January of 1964, and came from our good friends at Gutenberg.org. Norman Spinrad was born in 1940 in New York City. He served as president of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America from 1980 to 82, and currently lives in Paris. I discovered this tale just last week as I was in the middle of rereading The Forever War by Joe Haldeman for the first time in years. The premise proved interesting, but what made me do a double take was a statement very early in the text. A throwaway line at the time that today would not be found in a work published in a major magazine. I bring this up because these lines serve to show us how much the world has changed in the intervening years. The lines in question? The fifth ship was manned by homosexuals. They lasted only 6 months. A ship full of lesbians bettered that by only 2 weeks. These lines almost caused me to pass the story by. In the context they are used, to a modern reader, they are offensive. To a reader of ancient science fiction, defined as something written before I turned 20, it serves to show how contrary to the beliefs of the crazies on TV and radio, the world is getting better, more accepting. Remember, this story was written 9 years before the American Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality from the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, known as the DSM. The DSM is the Bible of psychology. The book lists and orders all manner of behavior that deviates from the norms. So we cannot fault Spinrad for this line, for it was the thought of his times. In 1974, The Forever War came out, and it won the Nebula Award in 1975. What does The Forever War have to do with Spinrad? A major part of the background of the book, The Forever War, focuses on an interstellar war that covers 1,100 years. During that time, the main character, thanks to time dilation, lives through less than 10 years. And changes happen to the Earth. The biggest example of this is the main character's last command. He's in charge of a unit. It's crewed entirely by homosexual men and women who refer to him, a heterosexual, as the old queer. Yes, in just 10 years, the views of the sci-fi mainstream had changed from considering homosexuality a mental issue to making it part of the future of mankind. Got something to think about. Well, there's enough introduction here. Here's the story. Take from it what you will. Subjectivity by Norman Spinrad. Interplanetary flight having been perfected, the planets and moons of the Sol system having been colonized, man turned his attention to the stars and ran into a stone wall. After 3 decades of trying, scientists reluctantly concluded that a faster-than-light drive was an impossibility, at least within the realm of any known theory of the universe. They gave up. But a government does not give up so easily, especially a unified government which already controls the entire habitat of the human race. Most especially a psychologically and sociologically enlightened government which sees the handwriting on the wall and has already noticed the first signs of racial claustrophobia. An objectless sense of frustrated rage increases in senseless crimes, proliferation of perversion, and vices of every kind. Like grape juice sealed in a bottle, the human race had begun to ferment. Therefore, the solar government took a slightly different point of view towards interstellar travel. Man must go to the stars, period. Therefore, man will go to the stars. If the speed of light could not be exceeded, then man would go to the stars within that limit. When a government with tens of billions of dollars to spend becomes monomaniacal, great things can be accomplished. Also, unfortunately, unspeakable horrors. Stage 1. A drive was developed which could propel a spaceship at half the speed of light. This was merely a matter of technological concentration and several $billion. Stage 2. A ship was built around the drive and outfitted with every conceivable safety device. A laser beam communication system was installed so that Saul could keep in contact with that ship all the way to Centaurus. A crew of 10 carefully screened, psyched, and trained near supermen were selected, and the ship was launched on a 16-year round trip to Centaurus. It never came back. 2 years out, the 10 near supermen became 10 raving maniacs. But the solar government did not give up. The next ship contained 5 near supermen and 5 near superwomen. They only lasted a year and a half. The solar government intensified the screening process. The next ship was manned by 10 bona fide supermen. They stayed sane for nearly 3 years. The Sol government sent out a ship containing 5 supermen and 5 superwomen. In 2 years, they had 10 super lunatics. The psychologists came to the unstartling conclusion that even the cream of humanity in a sexually balanced crew could not stand up psychologically to 16 years in a small steel womb, surrounded by billions of cubic miles of nothing. One would have expected reasonable men to have given up. Not the solar government. Monomania had produced great things in the form of the C divided by 2 drive. It now proceeded to produce unspeakable horrors. The cream of the race had failed, reasoned the solar government. Therefore, we will give the dregs a chance. The 5th ship was manned by homosexuals. They lasted only 6 months. A ship full of lesbians bettered that by only 2 weeks. Number 7 was manned by schizophrenics. Since they were already mad, they did not go crazy. Nevertheless, they did not come back. Number 8 was catatonics. 9 was paranoids. 10 was sadists. 11 was masochists. 12 was a mixed crew of sadists and masochists. No luck. Maybe it was because 13 was still a mystic number, or maybe it was merely that the solar government was running out of ideas. At any rate, ship number 13 was the longest shot of all. Background. From the beginning of man, it has been known that certain plants, mushrooms, certain cacti produce intense hallucinations. In the mid-20th century, scientists and other less scientifically minded had begun to extract those hallucinogenic compounds, chiefly mescaline and psilocybin. The next step was the synthesis of hallucinogens. LSD-25 was the first and was far more powerful than the extracts. In the next few centuries, more and more different hallucinogens were synthesized. LSD-105, johannic acid, Huxleyon, baronite. So by the time the solar government had decided that the crew of ship number 13 would attempt to cope with the terrible reality of interstellar space by denying that reality, they had quite an assortment of hallucinogens to choose from. The one they chose was a new, as yet untested,
2 experiments for the price of 1,
explained economy-minded officials, and unbelievably complex compound tentatively called Omnidrene. Omnidrene was what the name implied, a hallucinogen with all the properties of the others, some which had given to be all its own, and some which were as yet unknown, as 10 micrograms was 1 day's dose for the average man. It was the ideal hallucinogen for a starship. So they sealed 5 men and 5 women. They had given up on sexually unbalanced crews in ship number 13, along with half a ton of Omnidrene, and their fondest wishes, pointed the ships toward Centaurus and prayed for a miracle. In a way they could not possibly have foreseen, they got it. As Starship 13 passed the orbit of Pluto, a meeting was held, since this could be considered the beginning of interstellar space. The ship was reasonably large, 10 small private cabins, a bridge that would only be used for planetfalls, large storage areas, and a big common room where the crew had gathered. They were sitting in the all-purpose lounges, arranged in a circle. A few had their lounges at full recline, but most preferred the upright position. Oliver Bruni, the nominal captain, had just opened the first case of Omnidrene and taken out a bottle of the tiny pills.
"This, fellow inmates," he said, "is Omnidrene. The time has come for us to indulge. The automatics are all set. We won't have to do a thing we don't want to for the next 8 years."
He poured 10 of the tiny blue pills into the palm of his right hand.
On Earth, they used to have some kind of traditional ceremony when a person crossed the equator for the first time. Since we are crossing a far more important equator, I thought we should have some kind of ceremony.
The crew squirmed irritably. I do tend to be verbose, Bruni thought.
"Well, anyway, I just thought we all had to take the first pills together," he said, somewhat defensively.
"So come on, Ollie," said a skinny, sour-looking man of about 30 years.
Okay, Lazar, okay."
Marashkovsky's gonna be trouble, Bruni thought. Why did they put him on the ship? He handed the pills around. Lazar Mashovsky was about to gulp his down.
"Wait a minute," said Bruni. "Let's all do it together. 1, 2, 3.
They swallowed the pills.
"In about 10 minutes, thought Bruni. "We should be feeling it."
He looked at the crew.
10 of us,
he thought.
10 brilliant misfits. The Tsar, who has spent half his life high on Baronite. Vera Galdinez, would-be medium, trying to make herself telepathic with mescaline. Jorge Donna, why is he here? Me. At least with me it's simple. This or jail. What a crew! Drug addicts, occultists, sensationalists. And what else? What makes a pussin' do a thing like this? It'll all come out, thought Bruni. In 16 years, it'll all come out.
Feel anything yet, Ollie?
Said Marcia Johnson. No doubt why she came along. Just an ugly old maid liking the idea of being cooped up with 5 men. Nothing yet, said Bruni.
He looked around the room. Plain steel walls lined with cabinets full of Omnidrene on 2 sides. View screen on the ceiling. Bare floor. The other 2 walls decked out like an automat. Plain, gray, steel walls.
Then why were the grey steel walls turning pink?
Oh, said Jody Crail, rolling her pretty blonde head. Oh, here it comes. The walls are dancing. The ceiling is a spiral, muttered Vera. A winding red spiral.
Okay, fellow inmates, said Bruni. It's hitting.
Now the walls were red, bright fire engine red, and they were melting. No, not melting, but evaporating. Like crystal it is, said Lin Pei, waving his delicate oriental hands. Like jade, as transparent as crystal.
There is a camel in the circle,
said Lazar.
a brown camel.
Let's all try and see the camel together, said Vera Caldenez sharply. Tell us what it looks like, Lazar.
It's brown. It's two-humped kind. It has a 2-foot tail.
On big feet, said Lin Pei. A stupid face, said Donna. Very stupid.
Your camel is a great bore,
said the stocky, scowling Bram Draker. Let's have something else, said Joby.
Okay, replied Bruni. Now someone else tell us what they see.
A lizard, said Linda Tobias, a strange, somber girl, inclined to the morbid.
A lizard?
Squeaked Ingrid Solin. No, said Lin Pei. A dragon, a green dragon, with a forked red tongue.
He has little useless wings,
said Laszlo. He is totally oblivious to us, said Vera.
Bruni saw the dragon. It was 5 feet long, green and scaly. It was a conventional dragon, except for the most bovine expression in its eyes. Yes, he thought. The dragon is here.
But the greater part of him knew that it was an illusion. How long would this go on? It's good that we see the same things, said Marcia. Let's always see the same things.
Yes, yes.
Now a mountain, a tall blue mountain.
With snow on the peak.
Yes, and clouds.
1 week out.
Oliver Bruni stepped into the common room. Lin Pei, Vera, and Lazar were sitting together on what appeared to be a huge purple toadstool.
But that's my hallucination, thought Bruni. At least I think it is.
Hello, Ollie,
said Lazar.
Hi, what are you doing?
We're looking at the dragon again, said Vera. Join us. Bruni thought of the dragon for a moment. The toadstool disappeared, and the by now familiar bovine dragon took its place. In the last few days, they had discovered that if any two of them concentrated on something long enough to materialize it, anyone else who wanted to could see it in a moment.
What's so interesting about that silly dragon? Said Bruni.
how about the camel?
Said Lazar. Dragon turned into the two-humped brown camel.
Philly,
said Lin Pei. Okay, said Vera. So what do you want? Lin Pei thought a moment. How about a meadow? He said. A soft lawn of green grass. The sky is blue, and there are a few white clouds.
Clover is blooming,
said Lazar.
smell it.
Bruni reclined on the soft green grass. The smell of the earth beneath him was warm and moist.
A few apple trees here and there, he said.
And there was shade.
Look over the hill,
said Lazar.
there's the dragon.
Will you please get rid of that dragon?
Snapped Bruni.
Okay, Ollie, okay.
1 month out.
Get out of the way!
Yelled Bruni. He gave the dragon a kick. It mooed plaintively.
That wasn't very nice, Ollie,
said Lazar.
That dragon is always underfoot,
Said Brunei.
Why don't you get rid of it?
I've taken a liking to it.
Said Lazar.
Besides, what about your St. Bernard?
This ship is getting too cluttered up with everyone's hallucinations,
Said Brunei.
Ever since, when was it? A week ago? Ever since we've been able to conjure 'em up by ourselves and make everyone else see 'em.
Docker dematerialized the woman on his lap. Why don't we get together? He said.
Get together?
Yes, we could agree on an environment. Look at this common room, for example. What a mess. Here, it's a meadow. There, it's a beach, a palace, a boudoir.
You mean we should make it the same for all of us?
Asked Lazar. Sure, we can have whatever we want in our cabins, but let's make some sense out of the common room.
Good idea,
Said Brunei.
I'll call the others.
3 months out. Brunei stepped through the stuccoed portal and into the central Spanish garden. He noticed that the sky was blue, with a few fleecy white clouds. But then, the weather was always good. They had agreed on it. Lazar, Ingrid, Lin Pei, and Vera were sitting on the green lawn surrounding the fountain. Dacker, Jody, Linda, and Donner preferred the shade and lounged against the white, arabesqued wall which enclosed the garden on 4 sides, broken only by 4 arched entrance portals.
The garden had been a good compromise,
thought Brunei.
Something for everyone. Fresh air and sunshine, but also the mental security offered by the walls, which also provided shade for those who wanted it, a fountain, a few palm trees, grass, flowers, even the little formal Japanese rock garden that Lin Pei insisted on.
Hello, Ollie,
said Lazar.
Nice day.
Isn't it always? Replied Brunei. How about a little shower?
Maybe tomorrow.
I notice a lot of sleeping people today, said Brunei.
Yes, said Lin Pei. By now the garden seems to be able to maintain itself. You think it has a separate existence? Asked Ingrid. Of course not, said Vera. Our subconscious minds are maintaining it. It's probably here when we're all asleep.
No way of telling that, said Brunei. Besides, how can it exist when we're asleep, when it doesn't really exist to begin with?
Semantics, Ollie, semantics. Brunei took a bottle of Omnidream out of his pocket.
Time to charge up the old batteries again, he said.
He passed out the pills. I noticed Marcia is still in her cabin.
Yeah,
said Lazar.
She keeps to herself a lot. No great.
Just then, Marcia burst into the garden screaming, Make it go away! Make it go away! Beneath her slithered a gigantic black snake with a head as big as a horse's and bulging red eyes.
I thought we agreed to leave our private hallucinations in our cabins, snapped Brunei.
I tried. I don't want it around, but it won't go away. Do something.
10 feet of snake had already entered the garden. The thing seemed endless.
Take it easy,
said Lazar.
Let's all concentrate and think it away.
They tried to erase the snake, but it just rolled its big red eyes. That won't work, said Vera. Her subconscious is fighting us. Part of her must want the snake here. We've all got to be together to erase it. Marcia began to cry. The snake advanced another 2 feet.
Oh, quiet,
rasped Lazar.
Ollie, do I have your permission to bring my dragon into the garden? He'll make short work of the snake.
Brunei scowled.
You and your dragon. Oh, maybe it'll work.
Instantly, the green dragon was in the garden, but it was no longer 5 feet long and bovine. It was a good 12 feet long, with cold reptilian eyes and big yellow fangs. It took one look at the snake, opened its powerful jaws, and belched a huge tongue of orange flame. The serpent was incinerated. It disappeared. Brunei was trembling.
What happened, Lazar?
He said,
That's not the same stupid little dragon.
squeaked Lazar.
He's grown.
Brunei suddenly noticed that Lazar was ashen. He also noticed that the dragon was turning in their direction.
Get it out of here, Lazar! Get it out of here!
Lazar nodded. The dragon flickered and went pale, but it was over a minute before it disappeared entirely. 6 months out, Fangs wandered the passageways and haunted the cabins. Marcia's snake was back. There was Lazar's dragon, which seemed to grow larger every day. There was also a basilisk, a pterodactyl, a vampire bat with a 5-foot wingspread, an old-fashioned, red, spade-tailed demon, and other assorted horrors. Even Oliver Brunei's friendly St. Bernard had grown to monstrous size, turning pale green and growing large yellow fangs. Only the Spanish garden in the common room was free of the monstrosities. Here, the combined conscious minds of the 10 crew members were still strong enough to banish the rampaging hallucinations. The 10 of them sat around the fountain, which seemed a shade less sparkling. There were even rain clouds in the sky.
I don't like it,
said Bram Dacker.
It's getting completely out of control. So, we just have to stay in the garden, that's all, said Brunei. The food's all here, and so is the Omnidream, and they can't come in.
Not yet, said Marcia. They all shuddered.
What went wrong?
Asked Ingrid.
Nothing, said Donner. They didn't know what would happen when they sent us out, so we can't say they were wrong.
Very comforting,
croaked Lazar.
But can someone tell me why we can't control them anymore?
Who knows, said Brunei. At least we can keep them out of here. That's...
There was a snuffling at the wall. The head of something like a Tyrannosaurus Rex peered over the wall at them.
Ugh,
said Lin Pei.
I think that's a new one.
The dragon's head appeared alongside the Tyrannosaurus.
At least there's a familiar face,
tittered Linda.
Very funny.
Marcia screamed. The huge black snake thrust its head through a portal, and the flap of leathery wings could be heard, and the smell of sulfur.
Come on, shouted Brunei. Let's get these things out of here.
After 5 minutes of intense group concentration, the last of the horrors was banished.
It was a lot harder this time, said Docker.
There were more of them, said Donner.
They're getting stronger and bolder.
Maybe someday they'll break through and...
Lin Pei let the sentence hang. Everyone supplied their own ending.
Don't be ridiculous,
snapped Brunei.
They're not real. They can't kill us.
Maybe we should stop taking the Omnidream,
suggested Vera, without much conviction.
At this point,
said Brunei. He shuddered.
If the garden disappeared and we had nothing but the bare ship for the next 15.5 years, and we knew it, and at the same time knew that we had the Omnidream to bring it back, how long do you think we'd hold off?
You're right,
said Vera.
We just have to stick it out,
said Brunei.
Just remember, they can't kill us. They aren't real.
Yes, the crew whispered in a tiny, frail voice. They aren't real. 7 months out. The garden was covered with a gloomy gray cloud layer. Even the weather was getting harder and harder to control. The crew of Starship number 13 huddled around the fountain, staring into the water, trying desperately to ignore the snufflings, flappings, wheezes, and growls coming from outside the walls. But occasionally a scaly head would rise itself above the wall, or a pterodactyl or bat would flap overhead, and there would be violent shudders. I still think we should stop taking the Omnidream, said Vera Galadez.
If we stop taking it, asked Brunei, which would disappear first? Them or the garden?
Vera grimaced. But we've got to do something, she said. We can't even make them disappear at all anymore. And it's becoming a full-time job just to keep them outside the walls. And sooner or later, interjected Lazar, we're not going to be strong enough to keep them out. Brr. The snake! The snake! Screamed Marcia. It's coming in again! The huge black head was already through a portal.
Stop the snake, everyone!
Yelled Brunei. Eyes were riveted on the ugly serpent in intense concentration. After 5 minutes, it was obviously a stalemate. The snake had not been able to advance, nor could the humans force it to retreat. Then smoke began to rise behind the far wall. The dragon's burning down the wall! Shrieked Lazar. Stop him! They concentrated on the dragon. The smoke disappeared. But the snake began to advance again.
They're too strong, moaned Brunei. We can't hold them back.
They stopped the snake for a few moments, but the smoke began to billow again.
They're going to break through, screamed Donner. We can't stop them.
What are we going to do? Help! Creakings, cracklings, groanings as the walls began to crack and blister and shake. Suddenly, Bram Docker stood up, his dark eyes aflame. Only one thing strong enough, he bellowed. Earth! 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 Think of Earth! All of you, we're back on Earth. Visualize it, make it real, and the monsters will have to disappear. But where on Earth? Said Vera, bewildered.
The spaceport! Shouted Brunei. The spaceport! We all remember the spaceport!
We're back on Earth, the spaceport.
Earth!
Earth! Earth! Earth! The garden began to flicker. It became red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, invisible. Then back again through the spectrum the other way. Violet, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, invisible. Back and forth like a pendulum through the spectrum. Oliver Brunei's head hurt unbearably. He could see the pain on the others' faces, but he allowed only one thought to fill his being.
Earth! The spaceport! Earth!
More and more, faster and faster, the garden flickered, and now it was like the old common room again, and that was flickering. Light was flickering, mind was flickering, time, too, seemed to flicker.
Only Earth, thought Brunei. Earth doesn't flicker. The spaceport doesn't flicker.
Earth, Earth. Now all the flickerings of color, time, mind, and dimensions were coalescing into one gigantic vortex. That was a thing neither of time, nor of space, nor mind, but all three somehow fused into one.
They're screaming,
Brunei thought.
Listen to the horrible screams!
Suddenly, he noticed that he too was screaming. The vortex was growing, swirling, undulating, and it too began to flicker. There was an unbearable, impossible pain and... The sight of Starship number 13 suddenly appearing out of nowhere and sitting itself calmly down in the middle of the spaceport was somewhat disconcerting to the spaceport officials, especially since at the very moment it appeared, and even afterward, they continued to have visual and laser contact with its image, only 3 light months from Earth. However, the solar government itself was much more pragmatic. One instant, Starship 13 had been light months from Earth. The next, it was sitting in the spaceport. Therefore, Starship 13 had exceeded the speed of light somehow. Therefore, it was possible to exceed the speed of light, and a thorough examination of the ship and its contents would show how. Therefore, you idiots, throw a security cordon around that ship! In such matters, the long-conditioned reflexes of the solar government worked marvelously. Before the airwaves had cooled, 200 heavily armed soldiers had surrounded the ship. 2 hours later, the solar coordinator was on the scene with 10 orders of Sol to present to the returning heroes and a large, well-armored vehicle to convey them to laboratories, where they would be gone over with the proverbial fine-tooth comb. An honor guard of 200 men, standing at attention, made a pathway from the ship's main hatch to the armored carrier, in front of which stood the solar coordinator with his 10 medals. They opened the hatch. 1, 2, 5, 7, 10. Dazed and bewildered heroes staggered past the honor guard to face the coordinator. He opened his mouth to begin his welcoming speech and start the 5 years of questioning and experiments which would eventually kill 5 of the crew and give man the secret of faster-than-light drive. But instead of speaking, he screamed. So did 200 heavily armed soldiers. Because out of Starship 13's main hatch sauntered a 12-foot green dragon, followed by a Tyrannosaurus Rex, a pterodactyl, a vampire bat with a 5-foot wingspan, an old-fashioned red spade-tailed demon, and finally, big as a horse's, the pop-eyed head of an enormous black serpent.
This has been a Colbycast episode.
This work is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. Share it, link it, blog it, talk about it. As Woody Guthrie said, this song is copyrighted in the U.S. under seal of copyright number 154085 for a period of 28 years, and anybody caught singing it without our permission will be a mighty good friend to ourn, cause we don't give a darn. Publish it, write it, sing it, swing to it, yodel it. We wrote it, that's all we wanted to do.